Quilliam Foundation. That's the counter-extremism organisation. And from Cambridge, Azadea Moaveni, who is a writer and lecturer at Kingston Uni. She was Time Magazine's Middle East correspondent and is author of Lipstick Jihad and Honeymoon in Tehran. From the Quilliam Foundation, how do you respond to this news?
She was a soldier. She was in a war zone. She was personally responsible for recruiting many people. She was a propagandist for ISIS, and in an ideal situation, it's not these people like her would be brought to justice in an open court. But she was in a war situation, and she was killed whilst fighting against coalition forces.
So that's just the way it goes.
It is. She put herself in that situation. She put herself in the war zone. She decided to go there. She decided to be a soldier for Islamic State. And when there is a war and two armies, if you like, are fighting each other, then people die, unfortunately.
Azadeh, what can you tell our audience about Sally Ann Jones?
She was certainly one of the most iconic recruiters that ISIS had. She was of great propaganda value to them because she was this slightly telegenic-looking white woman who had gone to join the jihad against Bashar Assad. So having her on side, I think, was really important in terms of projecting the idea that they could get into the very reaches of British society. They could pluck up this woman who was a punk rocker, who was white, who was kind of attractive, and they could put her as their kind of poster woman.
And why would someone like that, born, we're told, in London, moved, we're told, to Kent, why would someone like that end up being an ISIS bride, recruiter, soldier, taking her young son out to Syria, to a war zone with her?
It's bewildering, and there isn't a sort of set profile of why converts to Islam are drawn to the most extremist, kind of militant strain of activity going on in the world of Islam. A lot of them tend to come from very fractured families, are single mothers, are divorced, have had a history of domestic violence. Initially, I think they look for a sense of belonging and a sense of a group that will give them some sense of empowerment, kind of ironically or counterintuitively through that. And I think a lot of our convert stories in Europe tend to fit that profile. Lost souls, rebels, looking for something, a group to kind of attach the victim narrative of their own life to a wider political narrative.
Haras Rafiq, what would you say about that?
I think that everybody's journey into radicalisation and joining ISIS is different, but there are some common factors. And the common factors are that there has to be some form of grievance, whether either genuine or perceived. There has to be an ideology, a lens through which to actually, a gang if you like, through which to actually look at a worldview, and charismatic recruiters. If you look at somebody like Sally Jones, she fits the profile of somebody who would go out and join, a typical person who would go out and join people like ISIS. It's not underprivileged people who actually come from disaffected families. It's actually, the World Bank did a study last year of the foreign fighters that have joined ISIS, and they found that the overwhelming majority of people that join them have a better social standing and a better education than the national average of the countries that they come from. I'm talking about Western countries.
Yeah.
However, this is part of a wider phenomenon of people actually polarization and people actually looking for belonging to a gang and looking for polarized views. It's something that we're seeing a lot more now online and offline, but she was radicalized a while ago, and there was a charismatic recruiter. Her husband, her late husband, the guy who died, was somebody that actually persuaded her that the solution to her problems was not only a certain Islamist, Wahhabi, Salafist version of Islam, but also her mission in life was to set up and fight for the utopian Islamist state.
Azadeh, often we talk about people who go out to join ISIS as being brainwashed. I wonder if this was a white, middle-class, middle-aged woman who took a decision to go out there, despite her intelligence, she took a decision to go out there.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, Victoria. I don't think that she was brainwashed. And I think kind of going back and forth between one pole of being brainwashed, submissive, naive woman, led astray, and then on the other extreme, a subversive, cruel, kind of mercenary, kind of jihadist in waiting. I think these poles of understanding are not really helpful to us. I think a lot of women who've gone from Europe to join ISIS have lots of motivations that, if we kind of suspend and look at them as human beings, are quite understandable. There certainly are political grievances. One interesting thing that's been identified as a common factor in countries that send a lot of women and men to ISIS is that they are French-speaking, and for instance, they also are countries that have veil bans. So a feeling that as a Muslim, as a veiled woman who can't be comfortable expressing her religious identity in public space, you feel a sense of grievance that then kind of coalesces around lots of other things going on in your life that compels you to be attracted to that.
Okay. So I can see that, Haras, you want to come back very briefly, if you would.
Very briefly. I think that's a false narrative. I don't believe that a grievance against banning the veil or a grievance against foreign policies is the reason why Muslims will travel thousands of miles to go out and kill other Muslims. It's more than that. It is something that is twisted. It is a recruiting sergeant, but it is actually more than that. Otherwise, every single person who wanted to wear the veil, every single person who would disagree with foreign policy would go out and become a jihadist. It's not as simple as that.
Okay.
People are manipulating and recruiting people who have these types of grievances.
Thank you both. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming on the programme. And no news as yet of